looking forward.
So, Obio is joining from Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody wants that to be Nigeria, but don't worry, you do realize that Nigeria, but that's something that I will touch on later on. But Nigeria has a huge challenge around, waiting for it. A huge challenge. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of you will recognize that as well. And it's not only for Nigeria, but it's also for other countries in like Tanzania. A lot of people don't know that, but Tanzania is also amongst one of the fastest, when I say in terms of population growth, Tanzania is part of that as well. Nigeria is just, that's, yeah, Nigeria is a challenge. It's a challenge for them. We'll touch on that.
Okay. So once again, welcome to the Catalyst African Town Hall. This is a bi-weekly meeting that we do. We discuss everything blockchain, and we centered on Cardano blockchain technology and how we will advance it across the rest of Africa. I do this together with my team. I have Obio from Nigeria, Madam Efia from Ghana, Boaz from DRC, Congo, and then Richmond, who is from Ghana, and I am reporting live from the UK. So welcome to the Catalyst Africa Town Hall. Just a brief intro about what our mission is all about. Our aim is to foster education, create awareness of blockchain technology, and also how we can adopt this across the continent of Africa. And we do this by hosting an inclusive town halls. We also have collaborative initiatives that we do and educational programs that we do as well. Somewhere last year, December, we were touring across Africa, hosting physical town halls. We hosted it in Nigeria, Uganda, South Africa, and DRC. And we interacted with a lot of youth, over 200 youths. We have written a very comprehensive report and video on it, which will be coming out early next year, early next month, June. So we strive to build a vibrant tech community that will drive innovation, economic growth, and then have a positive impact on the continent and individually. So this is our mission as the Catalyst African Town Hall. If you want to hear more of us, you can visit our website, catalystafrica.org. And here I'll hand over to Madam Efia to take us through a tour of Africa. Very interesting piece.
Yeah, from the mountains of Kilimanjaro to the smoothing sands of the Nile, across the expanse of the savannah, the depth and breadth that surrounds Mother Africa, we say Karibu, Akwaba, that is Ghanaian, and Cabo, Benevua, and welcome to another exciting Catalyst Africa Town Hall. Our ship is ready to sail. Sit tight and get ready for a breathtaking experience as we show you around the world of blockchain, another exponential technology in Africa.
Everybody, Befia, Boaz, please, are you there for our francophones?
Oui, je suis là, je suis prêt. Bienvenue à Kat, des montagnes de Kilimandjaro au son apaisant du Nil, en passant par l'étendue de la savane, la profondeur et l'étendue qui entoure la mer Afrique. Nous disons Caribou, Akwaba, Kaabo, bienvenue, welcome, dans une autre mairie africaine passionnante des catalystes. Notre navire est prêt à naviguer, à rester assis, à se préparer à vivre une expérience à couper le souffle, alors que nous vous faisons découvrir le monde de la blockchain et d'autres technologies exponentielles en Afrique.
Merci beaucoup. Okay.
Hey. Good.
Yes. So, Madam Efia, we are listening to you.
Our ship is not that expensive.
I want to get a gift for a friend. Book, I think.
A ship is not expensive. It may break, it may disconnect, it might waver along the line, but certainly we are going to take you to the destination that we promises you. It's going to be an exciting town hall. So let's go, let's get together.
Mm.
Et pour les francophones, mais bon, notre navire n'est pas si cher. Il peut casser, il peut se déconnecter parfois, il peut lâcher, mais une chose est sûre, il nous amènera à destination. Cela promet d'être une assemblée publique passionnante. Faisons-le ensemble.
Thank you very much, Boaz. What makes Africa very interesting is the diversity. A continent with 54 countries with different languages makes it very great. And one of our aim is to expand beyond the English and French to other languages like the Swahili, Arabic, and those who speak the Spanish, like the Quebec people. Okay. So thank you very much for coming to today's meeting. Our main agenda for today is to discuss the role of blockchain in shaping Africa with Denicio, Bute. So Denicio, Bute is the runs a stake pool. That's the QuickNet. I think he will be able to also tell us more about it. And those of us who we are not staking to any stake pool, there's the opportunity for us to, delegate to QNet. So Denicio, if you are there, hello, who is Denicio?
Hey, good evening. Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really thrilled, to be here today and learn more about your initiative. I really do love it because the thing is, it's really important to have people from who are really good and well educated in terms of, let's say, African affairs. And having a dedicated channel like this, discussing these type of topics from different experts, it's needed. It is needed, and it also inspires others as well, to contribute and learn and get involved. So thanks for having me. Yeah. So yeah, Denicio, what about me? Who am I? I'm 45-year-old man, lives in the Netherlands, happily married, my wife Linda, and I have two kids, a boy and a girl, Elijah and Noemi. Work at the Cardano Foundation. That's something that you all know, of course. Community manager, content lead as well. And yeah, so my journey in blockchain, I guess that's something that's very interesting. I learned about blockchain actually in 2013, and but never really gave it any serious attention. Just heard about it. In 2015 again, I was reintroduced to it, but also then I didn't really take it that serious. It was only late 2017 is when I really decided, hey, something's happening here. So then is when I start getting involved. Got involved in purchasing my very first ADA, and then from then on, kind of got myself slowly into the ecosystem, mainly on Reddit. That's where I started. And then later on, transitioned from Reddit on to Twitter, or sorry, X nowadays. What drew me really to this technology and mainly Cardano was the idea. And I think it was 2017, 2018, there were these articles and these apologize, these informative articles explaining the mission and the vision about Cardano. One of them was really creating a system that would help combat the land registration challenge. And that really caught my attention. The reason why is because in the country where I was born, that is in the Caribbean, St. Martin, that is a huge issue because everything's done manually, paperwork, right? It's back in the days, they didn't have computers, obviously, right? So everything was done by paper. The problem is, and that was then and currently still is the case, the people the regular people, people who owned the land that was, let's say, land that was moved on from owner to owner, from generation to generation. At some point, even the landowners didn't even know they owned land. But there were people in power who knew this because they had access to those documentations. They had access to those files. And they knew that the people didn't know that. So what happened, because they have that information, they used it. They misused their power. They misused their access. They misused their positions to actually steal other people out of their inheritance by changing the documentation, forging, rewriting ownership. Luckily, some people had copies of the deeds or some form of it. Those documentations surfaced at some point. As the original owner, they went to the official of the government to claim, basically, they're making sure that everything is okay, claiming whatever they have rights to. And there is where all of this problem surfaced. It's not just one family, it is multiple families that is affected by this. And it's not something that just happened in 1 year, but this is something that's been going on for generations. It's also something that is personal because it affected my family as well. So there is where really the drive, the passion, that energy is really being fueled to see change, to have a situation, to have a solution that would never allow people in power to misuse their information or ability or access to information to change or, let's say, steal someone out of their inheritance. And blockchain technology, learning of this, what Cardano was really working towards, that is really what got me into this ecosystem. So I dedicated my time in learning, dedicated my time, to the community, educating from 2018 when I got seriously involved till today, basically. That's really what fueled me. So yeah, I don't want to just hold it as a monologue, but of course, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and interact.
That's a very interesting story about you. And I think there's this project on the Cardano blockchain that is also trying to solve the same issue that you have raised about the land registration. This is the same issue that we're having in Africa, that a single land can be sold to more than 2 or 3 people, and now claiming ownership becomes very difficult. So I think around Fund 8 or 7, we saw some proposals about land registration, Landano, that they are also trying to resolve some of this land ownership. And I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it is a brilliant idea, and I applaud it, absolutely. I definitely would love to support them. There's a couple of steps that we have to consider, right? You cannot build on, okay, so there's a starting point that you say, okay, if we want to utilize this technology for that purpose, right? Then there's a starting point. That means there has to be a record, record of owners, landowners, etc. But what if the records at this point in time is not truthful? Then use that. If that is your starting point, then for the rest of history, that will just, it doesn't make any sense because you're building on a lie. So before you even engage, before you even start something like that, you really have to make sure that you do a thorough investigation. Go back in history, find the true owners, make sure that that deed is authentic, that the owner on that deed is indeed the owner. And it's a Herculean task, yes, to do. And it's going to cost a lot of time and effort and energy, maybe resources, money, people. But if you really want to make sure that you're built, that you're developing, that your starting point is correct, you have to make sure that you do the work, do that homework.
Awesome. So, Denicio, what's the role of blockchain in shaping African future?
All right. I love that. You're straight to the point. All right. So the role of blockchain is and should become more and more, let's say, more important. Why do I say that? Okay, so based on my research, the current population as of, let's say, the start of end of 2023, total population of the African continent is 1.3 billion people. In the next, let's say, 20 to 30 years, according to certain research, that is expected to grow to 2.5 billion. So that's almost double the amount. That's a massive challenge. I mean, there is, oh, before I head to that point, Nigeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Tanzania being several of those countries, several countries leading that pack, in terms of massive expected population growth, in just the coming 20 years. So with that population growth, that anticipated population growth that we are speaking about, comes with a huge challenge. I mean, think about it. Education. You have to make sure, that the youth are well educated, because that's basically sustaining the future of your country, of your nation. Secondly, jobs creation. It is impossible, to sustain such growth and make sure that every single person, has a job and thus an income to, for their livelihood, maintain their livelihoods. That's a challenge. So we have education, we have jobs, we have healthcare, insurance. These are all the industries that will be affected. But remember, there's not only this, you also have the infrastructure, transportation, massive population growth. How do you expect to get people from A to Z or A to B? If your infrastructure is not up and top, if your infrastructure is not being maintained or upgraded. Okay, I can name many different industries, waste. What about waste sector? Population growth brings massive challenge also in these areas. So how does blockchain really, how can that help? I'm not even speaking about mobile telecommunications, for example, access to internet, which I welcome, access to financial resources, to financial credit. What I see happening is that because many of these countries, the current government doesn't seem, based on my research, to be forward thinking, proactively working towards, let's say, okay, considering, wait a second, we're expecting a massive population growth. So perhaps we should start upgrading our infrastructure. We should start thinking today, how are we going to sustain our population? How are we going to make sure that the youth, that there's proper education? But to have proper education, you also have to make sure that the youth have access to the largest library on the planet, internet. That is already a challenge in itself. Yes, there's blockchain solutions. We have like World Mobile. I'm just going to zoom in for a moment on the internet part. We have World Mobile, trying to bridge that challenge. But should we only rely on, when it comes to blockchain technology, on just one entity, one company, one project? Or should we start educating people within Africa in terms of this technology and what it can do, or how it can serve the future generation, the current generation towards the future? Okay, that means that we need multiple solutions. We don't only need one. We need to have the Daniel solutions. We need to have the Afia solutions. We need to have the Solomon solutions. You know, the let's say the World Mobiles 0.2, 2.0, or just the alternatives. People need to have choices. So in other words, for me, it's extremely important that to see these type of alternatives coming from Africans themselves, coming from the continent, based on the knowledge, experience of this technology. So that's one way that we can serve that. Okay. Another way is traceability solutions. When you think about infrastructure, right, the roads needs to be upgraded. Yes, the bridges needs to be upgraded. Of course, the waste sector needs to be reformed or changed, upgraded to maintain that massive growth. Because as population grow, yes, there will be, and that's I think that's also already known. I forgot the name of that particular group, but I think the middle class, you call that. The middle class is also increasing. It's growing. And with that comes massive challenge, because those people will start to consume, what's that? Someone's asking a question here.
No, there's no question.
No.
Okay.
Just
So,
telling them that you are giving us some free major project ideas.
okay, so of course, yourselves, you notice, as you become more and more into that middle class, hey, you have now also the ability to, consume stuff, purchase stuff here and there, but that also produces waste, right? So that means your system will need to be upgraded as well. The waste management system needs to be upgraded. How do you do that? Can you actually utilize blockchain technology to do this? What about recycling? Of course, you can use blockchain technologies to create sustainable, fair, transparent systems. Healthcare. What about the health records? I mean, yes, of course, we all deal with the electronic systems that is currently in place, but can we have a better system in place? That really gives basically pushing power to the edges in terms of empowering you as the patient to manage your own records, to manage your own identity, not having someone else, a third party, to do that for you. So again, yes, there are solutions on the Cardano currently being developed on the Cardano network. We have IMX, for example, with their identity solution. But the question is, do we only want the IMX as a solution, or should, let's say, Richmond, right? Should you start thinking about the challenges in your country? And with the knowledge and experience that you have currently about blockchain technology, you start thinking and connecting the dots about how or what you can do or what solutions you can develop to bridge those problems or solve those problems. Again, love IMX, brilliant, project, love the team, but let's be frank, they don't know the challenges of your country better than you do. So that's the reason why I would always say it's extremely important that we start looking towards the youth, giving them the opportunity to educate themselves, get a better understanding, of this technology. And if you, especially developers among us here, if that's an aspiration that you have, to build solutions of your own, or that would serve your country or whoever that may be, do that. Anyhow, I'm hearing myself literally, so I'm gonna take some questions. What's up?
We all love listening to Denicio. That was some brilliant ideas that you have given us. As you are talking, I keep jotting some things down because each word from you is a potential project idea. And I think your presentation is very great. Thank you very much, Denicio. Please, is anybody in the group have any discussion want to add to what Denicio have said? You want clarification, or you want to top up, or maybe ask some questions? Please, you can
Yeah,
raise up your
Answer.
hand.
If
Hi,
I can
Professor.
yeah, Denicio. Yeah. So Denicio, I also want to know about your stake pool. I think Daniel talked about that. I want to know why you started it, what's the mission, and like what's underneath it.
Okay, so that's a very good question. I usually try to refrain from speaking about my stake pool because I don't want to make this seem as if I'm shilling what I do, but so I'll be very careful how I bring this. So the stake pool really, the name is WeConHet. That's the name of the stake pool. The ticker is WEQNT. Some people prefer to call it WENKT, but it is WEQNT as a ticker, and the name is WeConHet. That's just a creative way of saying we can do it. So we started out really, I can give you just shortly a bit of a background. We started out with this idea of providing solar lighting to people in rural areas, because several years back in the congregation, church congregation that I am part of, there was one of the elders who gave a presentation. He's been part of a mission in Kenya for years, and he has a lifelong friend there. For years, they have been traveling to the penitentiaries there, serving the inmates and also orphans, because apparently it is not uncommon that parents abandon their children, or that very young children just lose their parents due to illness, be it whatever type of illness that may be, or just because their parents have been murdered. Now, what our partners does there is they will take in those in orphanage, in the orphans in their orphanage, and care for them, give them a place where they're safe and where they can grow healthy and strong and become responsible citizens. They also ensure that those kids are attend school. So in other words, the orphanage takes care of the school fees, the school uniforms, and those, basically everything. It comes at a cost. And that's why at some point, I also started advocating within my network here in the Netherlands for people to sustainably sustain the orphanage. That's one. So we started out with the solar lights. That was the portion of the stake pool rewards goes towards that. But as time progressed, we started noticing, that the needs is much greater than just solar lighting. Yes, it is very well appreciated, but there's more challenge. So we started providing school materials for the children, because that was a demand as well. And then at a later point, we learned, hey, there's so many children there who actually walk the earth without shoes. And myself, coming from the Caribbean and not a well-off family, I used to walk barefoot as well. So I know that. And that's why we, with our staple, decided at some point, let's provide a whole, just large group of children with just free shoes. And of course, we also have some very good, generous people within the Cardano ecosystem, and there's so many of them. If I start naming, mentioning names, some may say, "Hey, but you forgot to mention me." But you know who you are, right? Who actually teamed up with us, because in the rural areas, this is the northern part of Kenya. That's in Kakuma. Clean water is a problem. I mean, you do
It's
not.
everywhere.
it is a huge problem. I have
Yeah.
seen, I mean, my partners have shown me, the kids, together with some adults, they would dig a hole, dig a hole, as deep as possible. The ground gets moist, and at some point, you have like a pool of water. But this is just dirt water. And because of, I mean, they're so desperate, children would scoop that water up. And you cannot imagine that. You cannot imagine that, but they would drink that water. If I would drink, I would get sick. Why should we allow children there to drink that water? Of course, yeah, the situation is different, but still, when you see that, that breaks your heart. So together with several from the Cardano ecosystem, we decided to fund several water trucks, clean water trucks, to go there and fill the community tanks. So in the community, they have huge tanks that can be filled. And that tank, the water can be tapped by everyone in the village. So, and we did that, I think, for like multiple villages. I think at some point, we distributed like 300,000 liters of water, clean water, across multiple villages. And this year, I think it was maybe like 2 months ago, or maybe even a month ago, we did another distribution. That's the clean water side. Let's say about 2 years ago, what happened is I overheard a conversation between Joshua Akpan, who is actually Nigerian, and the team from Ergoland. So that's Chris Ray from the Ergoland team. So I overheard a conversation from them and about this microfinance project that they're building on Ergo, and was thinking on also on a later stage on Cardano. And I mingled in the conversation, and I said, hey, guys, can you explain more what this is? Learning about this, I decided to go back to my partner in Kenya. And I told him, hey, John, his name is John I, by the way. I told him, hey, John, what do you think about a microfinance, creating a microfinance opportunities for the people there? It was like a moment of silence. And I'm like, but did you hear me? Is my sound working or something? But he was perplexed because he told me, Denicio, many have came and tried this, but failed. So there was a huge demand for this because the traditional, let's say, financial sector would not give these people financial credit because their risk profile is just too high. They just fall outside of scope. They're not in scope, and thus there's basically no option for them. No option. Unless they take part in what in Kenya is called a SACCO. And basically, let's say a small community group. That's how I understand a small community group who pools resources together. And those resources can then be borrowed can then be lent to someone else. And that person pays back that amount with interest. And of course, the interest goes to the members of that SACCO. Basically, the beginning of a bank, you would say. So brought that news to him, and what happened is we found a guy who lived in Nairobi, part of the Cardano community, and he was willing to travel for nothing, all the way from Nairobi to Kakuma. That's like 1,800 kilometers. It's crazy. He traveled all the way there. I told him, we'll pay your fee. Don't worry. We'll pay your fee, accommodation, and everything that you need, as long as you can educate the community there, right, on blockchain technology. So basically, he became the educator for over 100 people. I mean, we trained over 100 people, in this in blockchain technology, wallet security, microfinance on the blockchain. It was a massive operation, and that was all funded by WEQNT stake pool. Now, what is the impact? Eventually, Ergoland was established, and we worked. I mean, I mean, I have a full-time job, so I can't be, like involved in that every day. So what I did at some point, I told my partner, John, listen, you will have to be the spokesman. You have to be the one communicating back and forth with your Ergoland team and making sure that they are up to date on everything that is happening on the ground. If you require funding, you'll have to communicate with them and make sure that everything goes well. Now, John is not a tech savvy guy, but here is where the guy from Nairobi comes in. He is the one who really trained John and the whole community there on every single thing that they need to know. What I love about the Ergoland team is the Ergoland team actually showed them the importance of wallet security. So he did an exercise with them. He created a wallet, flashed his seed phrase, and then he told them, hey, did you see it? Right? People wrote it down or made a picture. And the person, this is how interesting this is, the person who was first to access the wallet was able to remove the funds on that wallet. And this is a very practical way of teaching people the importance of wallet security. Make sure. And so they really took the time to educate people from step to step. So currently we've issued over, I think, 200 loans already. The microfinance cooperative, we were given full authority by the government, by the local government. The cooperative that we established was even officially opened by the local government. And so we're fully mandated to issue loans, not only in the Kenyan shilling, but also crypto-based loans. And it's the only microfinance cooperative in that entire region at this moment that's doing this. And the demand is high. So yes, it's crazy. And even just like last week, I think it was, or last week, my partner, because sometimes they do struggle with the rent. And yes, I mean, end of last year, and I can say that we paid the rent, I think, for 6 months. When they were able to manage that fully on their own at some point. And it's only now, they said, hey, can you help us with additional 3 months? So all of that is being financed basically by the pool, because we recognize that this is something that is benefiting not one individual. And that's what I've always said to him. What we do should never benefit just 1, 2, or 3 people. It should be beneficial to the mass. And that's what we're doing. So that is really, I mean, it's maybe a bit long explanation as to the things that the stake pool does, but the stake pool here really is, it's a purpose-driven stake pool. That's what we call a purpose-driven stake pool. When it comes to really making an impact, I mean, real life impact, that's what we're here for. That's what we really want to do. At the end of the day, yes, we all have to eat. Yes, my kids need to go to school, and I also have to pay their school fees and make sure that they, have something for when they leave the house, right? But, and that's okay. But at the same time, I also want to make sure, that I'm using the time that I have wisely in creating a lasting impact, not only for me, but also for others. So that's really the
Oh, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting and very, very, what should I say? It's been a
This
blessing.
is not shilling yet. I'm not here to shill the pool. You asked me the question, just wanted to explain you those things that we're doing. So it's all part of that passion. I mean, I tell my friends, I tell my partners, listen, I am more Kenyan in my heart than people realize. I'm more African than people realize, though I was not born in Africa, never been to Africa before. So besides Egypt, of course, but yes, because I care dearly about that. And when you see me speak about stuff, that's because I think about that. I sit down and I think about it. When I speak about the demographic outlook of Africa, 2030, 2050, and the massive population growth that is upon the continent, and the challenges that comes with that. Of course, people have to realize we have to start thinking forward. It's really not about, okay, I'll wait for someone else to do it. The government has to do it. No. The government will not do it. Change will not come by itself. What I have experienced often is that with the change of leadership, with the change of power, so often is just what we call a friend's politics, because the current leader knows the new leader or some way, shape, or form. And when that new leader comes to power, somehow they will, kind of pull power to themselves and don't want to give that up. So the question is, and Daniel, here is where it comes, and I know I told you I'm going to ask you that question, right? When change? When are we going to see this change? When are we going to see, often you see like people actually fighting each other over a leader. Is that leader really worth, let's say, destroying my village, burning down the shops, the very people who serves our community? Personally, I don't believe any single leader, is worth that. Right? So it's like, oh, wait a second. I'm for boss and you're for Daniel. And because it's opposing parties, we fight each other. That's not worth it. And I see this happening in several countries still, in Africa. This is just bad. It's not sustainable. The only people who are being hurt is you yourselves. And that has to change. So yeah. Another topic, of course, is as the youth embrace this technology, right, and new leaders that emerge also embrace this new technology. I do see it happening, that we also think of a more fair and transparent voting system, where you don't have to ask yourself, wait a second, were those elections fair? Did you really win? No. But the question is, who's going to develop those solutions? Should it come from IOHK or IOG? Or should this come from people from Ghana, Uganda? Should it come from people from Nigeria, who understands their challenges, who have thought it through and have developed, together with very skillful and knowledgeable people, a system that is catered to your needs, your specific, let's say, country's needs. I can build a system based on the Netherlands system, on Netherlands needs and whatever we think here, how things work here, and I can sell it to you. But how beautiful would it be if you yourself could do that? Because everything that is dear to you would be embedded in that system and serving the purpose that is needed to solve your problems. That's how I view this.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant. I think your last statement resonates very well with me, and I think some of my group members here at the town hall. I remember somewhere Fund 6. I think OB also identified some gaps in their country when it comes to youth employment, and it brought up with some brilliant suggestion. Brought it to this town hall to solve the youth unemployment, because you notice that there are a lot of people, the youth who have finished school, who have finished university. Some of them have finished secondary school, but some of them are lacking the soft skills. So you try to train them, but after training them, what's next? You need to get them employment. So You brought up some organization, Remostat. Obi, would you like to share like say something about it for us? How you're able to identify the
Yeah,
gap and how you're able to solve with your initiative?
yeah. So I think what we did with Remostat was just take an unconventional approach to skill acquisition and job placement, right? So there were two things we realized, right? One was the fact that a lot of young people in Africa were not skilled enough with uh, conventional skills, right? Although it was more like a blockchain and a Cardano project, we did not focus on letting the people learn Cardano because we needed to get them skilled with relevant skills, everyday skills that can get them job with traditional Web2 or traditional companies, right? So we placed them. So we did a training where we did what we call the job shadowing project, right? So we trained them on basic skills, UI, front end, back end, and all those basic projects, basic skills. And then what we now did top next was like, okay, so we will take you and then you job shadow a professional that is already working in that your dream company, right? So we had some partnership with some companies and then we told them, right, so don't worry. So some of them were nice enough to decide, okay, if you're gonna bring these people in for the 3 months that they will be job shadowing, then we are gonna be paying them. And some were like, oh, we don't really think we have that budget for that. And then those that did not have, we paid them. But again, everything was done through the ADA. So because again, part of that was trying to let these guys understand the need to how blockchain can help them with the whole challenge of payment and challenges of getting paid and all those stuff. Because some of these companies were not only based in Nigeria, some were based in the US, some were based in India, some were based in the UK. So it was strictly paid through the ADA, right? So what we now did was, okay, so we got these guys and then we did what we call the job shadowing program for like 3 months. And so people directly were job shadowing with projects, learning directly from experts. And then so forgetting about the whole idea of money, right? Because money and all those stuffs are always the challenge to why people don't get this, because you have to be thinking about, oh, I need to get data, I need to do this, I need to do this. So we sorted all of those basic needs. And then with the stipends, I think it wasn't much. We just paid them. Most of it was between $30 to $50 in ADA. And we just took all of that responsibility and allowed these guys to learn. And it was an amazing project. Post that project, we've got people that got jobs. I think about 30% of them were retained in those companies because once they were able to join and then they could prove their competence to those companies, right? So no more about saying, are you good? Because now you see that he's good, right? So it was so about 30% of them were retained by those companies. And then post that project, we've got a lot of them that have grown up to do amazing stuff. One we got somebody that will finish that project, and then she was basically doing that project because she needed funding to use and sponsor her travel abroad. She got a scholarship, but she did not have money to process. So it was in that process she did everything, and then she got money processed and went in for a PhD in the US. We got someone who from a foundation. I don't know. There's this popular foundation in Nigeria, Chasing Slum. So they picked them from the slums. And then so we partner with these guys, and then so they pick them from the street, they sleep under the roads and all of that. So this foundation picks them. So we help them train. And then recently I was chatting with the guy. The guy is now an expert full stack developer and all of that. So it was an amazing project. And that was just like us trying to see how we can change the narrative by just being a little bit creative with our approach to solve the problem.
Man, I love that idea. I really love what you guys are doing. Absolutely. This is how a lot more people should be thinking. You know, you've actually come up with a solution to a problem. You're solving your problem. Actually, it answers also one of the problems that I've seen. I mean, I mentioned earlier, right, about the projected population growth. And I was having this discussion recently with someone that I know here. And I told him, you know, if let's say we're now in the year 2045, we're in Nigeria, right? And population growth has increased significantly to the point where the government cannot, I mean, there's just not enough jobs for everyone, right? What do you think is going to happen? So I just asked him that question. He said, I don't know. There'll just be people will just enter into poverty, right? Yes, of course. But there will be a massive migration, massive migration. People will start leaving and I foresee a lot of the high net worth people, leaving the country to Europe, maybe even US, UK, France, because there may be better opportunities there. And so how do you really front run that? How can you be more proactive if you know that the population is poised to grow that fast? Then you need to start thinking about today about solutions that can meet the challenges for tomorrow. And this is one way that you've just actually mentioned here, Bio. And I applaud you for that. Because we need more
Thank
people.
you, Denicio.
We need more people like you. And I'm serious about that. Serious. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be a serious problem. And I just dread, that the leaders of today are not concerned about that. One way you can see it is, for example, the infrastructure, right? Thing is, if you don't upgrade your roads, still the pavement is still, like as if it hasn't been looked at in 100 years, for example, right? How are you going to sustain or maintain population growth with millions of people ongoing, let's say, on that particular road? How are you going to do that, right? That's just a challenge. You have to really start thinking proactively, as a government. But obviously, you're not government, but you are thinking proactively. And in that sense, you are also an inspiration to other people. So it's important for you also now to become a thought leader, in your community, to show people what is possible. Because as you came up with this solution, I'm pretty sure people can tap in to your thought process, connecting the dots, and start thinking of alternative or other solutions in other areas, utilizing also blockchain technology.
Beautiful.
Access to internet is, you can give me a book, right? I can read that book. That book tells me everything about blockchain. I can learn about that, absolutely. But maybe I have a very just, God-given skill, talent, for computer programming, whatever. But I don't have access to the internet. How in the world would I then educate myself or allow anyone to educate me on this new technology? How will I then be able to really use different programming languages to write or learn the basics of smart contracts? I mean, I have the book explains me how and everything, but maybe access to the internet would kind of like speed up that process, make things a bit more easier. But that's another challenge. And the question is, how are we going to bridge that? How are we going to bridge that? I mean, I've spoken to people in the rural areas in Kenya. They have no internet. And the problem is the services that are there, some people are asking $80 worth of Kenyan shilling for just 1 megabyte. $80 a month. That's ridiculous. Okay, now I'm kind of comparing it maybe to like the Dutch standards, but either way, it is ridiculous. And how there's not many people who can pay that. So we need We need solutions that allow people to have access to internet that is cheaper, better, and maybe even faster. And so the question is, how is the infrastructure? I know that I think it's now almost 20 years ago that the Kenyan Authority, hey, Daniel, we lost him, it seems like. The Kenyan Authority actually ran throughout the whole country. There's fiber lines run along the whole country, basically. So if needed, you can be connected. If needed, you can be connected, with to fiber optic, internet, fiber. That's stable. So the question now is, how did other countries, how are they doing? How well prepared are they? And why isn't internet that accessible in 2024 to more people? And how could we solve that? Anyone, any thoughts? Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, like, I think about these things, but you should also think about these things. You are also the future entrepreneurs, of your country. If you live in Uganda, if you live in Ghana, if you live in Nigeria, or if you wherever, DRC, you are the future entrepreneurs. You are the future developers. You are literally the future. Again, as I mentioned to you, Daniel, earlier, I'm 45 years old. I'm at the half of my life. In other words, at some point, the fire and energy in me will start to diminish, to start to decrease, and at some point, the scepter will have to be handed over to whom? The younger generation. But at this point in time, you have to make sure that you are educating yourselves, that you're building your knowledge base, that your skill sets, soft skills, you name it, also. But take those chances, take those opportunities. It may cost you some hours and headaches, but if that is needed to make sure that you're future proof, that you're ready for what's taking on other responsibilities, do it.
Amazing.
That's
how I view this, Daniel.
Yeah. Denicio, I just want to find out from you whether after coming into blockchain, and then the reason why you got excited into coming to blockchain was those land issues in your hometown, that's the Caribbean. Has it really impacted the Caribbeans from this perspective?
Okay, so in terms of, let's say, blockchain in the Caribbean, I really don't have a good understanding of where they are. What I can say is that the island where I was born, St. Martin, people know the concept of blockchain, but the integration into banks and ability to really transfer funds from, let's say, your ADA to a bank, that is so limited there. You'll need to open an offshore account in the US and do a via transfer. So basically, withdrawing your funds off an exchange to your account in the US, and then from that bank account, transferring the funds to your local bank on the island. So it's a cumbersome process. And in that process, as you know, you're going to lose a lot in fees, but that's just the way it works. There's not many people there concerned about this technology, to be honest. So it's what happens is that people are fighting the cases in courts. Even my family at this moment is fighting that issue in court. We have taken different people to court. We have taken even the government to court. and it's an ongoing thing, but it's difficult.
Okay, I know it's difficult. It's difficult.
Yes. So my hope is
Edge the youth, yeah.
my hope is sometime in the future, once we have clear land registration, let's say use cases in multiple jurisdictions, multiple countries, this is being widely accepted that my country, my island, would also consider this technology.
Yeah.
After and only after they have made sure that everything is cleared. In other words, the ones who are now on paper as the owners is legitimate. So in other words, they have to do the homework, they have to do the research and make sure that this has not been falsified. There's no one who has stolen someone's land and placed their name on the document. Common practice, mainly one that has been exercised by people in power. I can tell you that because we have experienced this firsthand. We've had people in government. This was many years ago. My mother was on her dying bed. And we had people who were in power came to our house asking my mother to sign papers. Yes. She refused. And this is the very case that we are fighting today. Somehow, some person changed the names on the document. Yes. But thankfully, my mother, she had one of the copy of the original. Yes. So that was basically what made things easier for us right now.
People are showing interest to connect with you again. Maybe some people would like to have I followed you on Twitter this afternoon. If you can put your links or whatever in the chat, so those who wants to get back, or you don't do that. So that the people who would want to learn more from you can get in touch with you. If it's possible with you. If you like it, if you don't like it, it's not by fault. Oh, okay. I've already followed you on Twitter, though. I don't know whether you saw me follow you this afternoon. This afternoon, I followed you.
I've seen several people following indeed me, but again, I don't know everyone in the ecosystem, so it's but appreciate it. It's but that's my handle. It's
Denicio,
yes.
thank you very much. We really appreciate we having you today. There will be a lot of comments about you in the comment section.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, Musa said really enjoying listening to your speech. And then he said he would like to connect with you again. So I'm sure, Musa, you can follow Denicio on S. Then you get to know his up-to-date activities. I think we have had enough of Denicio over 1 hour, and we will have to
Daniel,
start wrapping up.
I have one last question for you, and
Okay,
actually
please.
everyone who's here. There is this perception of Africa being a poor continent, right? But we all know this is not true. Africa, in terms of natural resources, is the richest continent on the entire planet. How is it possible, or what can be done to change this perception? Because if you think about it, it is not the Western, the developed nations who needs, no, it is not really the Africans that needs the Western, let's say, developed nations, but it should be the other way around because they're looking for natural resources.
Exactly.
But so the question, so it's kind of weird. Who actually now really holds the best cards?
This is one of the problems that we're all facing. For example, I think Nigeria is one of the leading producers of oil. I can say in the whole world, one of the leading producers in the whole world. And when it comes to West Africa too, they are the top notch. But yet still, they are struggling to manage these resources very well. I don't know if Nigeria have oil refining, but for Ghana, we usually take our crude oils to Europe to be refined, then they sell it back to us to buy.
In another currency.
Yeah, in another currency. So they come for the natural resources, the natural oil. Then because you can't use it at the natural state, and it's not only oil. We have Ghana is one of the leading producers in cocoa. Cocoa, yeah, for chocolate and other stuff. But we don't have we don't have chocolate factories. So you have to bring it back to Europe to be processed, and then package it and come and sell it back to us. And not even in our local currency, but in a foreign denomination, So all these activities weakens our economy.
Of course. So
Yes.
when will we see, because I mentioned earlier to you, right, this is not something that just happens in 2024, or
No.
by chance it started in 2022. This is a problem, an issue that's happening for generations. It's like the past 30, 40, 50 years. So you're going to tell me that in 50 years' time, there's not been someone who stood up and said, let's start building today our own refineries. Let's start building our own factories. Let's start creating jobs here. Let's stop being dependent on another nation.
Obio, what do you think? You have any contribution, Professor Obio?
What's
Yeah,
that?
I usually, he's asking for my opinion on your question. I used to call it the bane of natural resources, right? I feel that if I was given the map and asked to write about or give the ideal kind of country, the country I would draw would have no natural resource. Because the problem of natural resource is that it makes us lazy, and it brings intellectual laziness, because our leaders know that at the end of the year, they're going to definitely, or at the end of the month, money still comes back. So there's money coming in without the productivity or mental productivity. And I feel this is the bane of Africa. This is the problem of Africa. Our wealth is our problem. I call it the Aesop principle, right? So we have the natural resource, but we need Jacob to always do the processing. And the guy that does the processing, who has no natural resource, is better. In fact, he makes the demand for the birthright because of just having the capacity to process. Because you're not going to eat your meat raw. You will always need the processor. And even when the processor has no natural resource, he's going to be the one to make demand on the birthright, because that is where the real value is. So I feel like, for me, Africa's problem lies in the very wealth and the very natural resources that we do have. I bet you if Africa had no natural resource, we would be one of the most prosperous nations. And ask me why. Because now we are forced to think. We are forced to think, what do other people have that we can add value to them and return back to them that will make it better or 10 times more valuable. Now our leaders now have to put, because we have the best of minds. Like when we sit down to discuss issues, I'm like, wow, these people are so intelligent. But all of that intelligence is brought into the box, because now there's no need to be intelligent for you to get some level of returns, because every end of the month, something comes back. So our politicians, our leaders, and even us as the entrepreneurs in Africa are not forced to think beyond just the oil and gas, the minerals that we naturally have, because we know that this is so.
I get your point, Ubio. And this is, now that we are aware of this, let's say, of this issue, how are you going to solve that? because you cannot not have natural resources. That is, the reality is you have it. And as you mentioned, because you have it, it comes with this intellectual laziness, right? So if you're aware of that, it seems to me that we need to start changing this, right? At least that's how I see it. You cannot continue down that same avenue. We've been there before. You see what it has brought to several African countries. Right.
I think Obio went offline.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that, Bio.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Fine.
thanks for having me, man, Daniel. And it
Thank
was really a
you.
pleasure coming on and discussing just the things that I observe. Again, I'm not the specialist here, but the specialists are here in the room. That's with me. That's you guys, not me.
Okay, Denicio, thank you very much for hosting us, and we are almost done with the presentation. We usually want to inform the community about our new website. For the past 2 months, we have been talking about it. So you can visit our website, catalystafrica.org, and get to know all the activities and the beautiful things that we are doing together with our partners. And also, I want to also take this opportunity to thank everyone who managed to come to today's town hall. Our next meeting will be on 7th of June. 7th of June is our next meeting, so please add it to your calendar. We will also bring in another speaker. And
No. Our service meeting is going to be we are going to share ideas on your proposals. So those who have proposals, they should look out for our forms. Danny, have you forgotten? Are you not going to do
that's going to be
first?
on, that's going to be 21st. That's going to be the voting time. Idea
Our
first,
next
voting
meeting.
time. Yes. So that,
Oh, okay.
yes. So please, idea first is 21st to 5th July. We will share the link right now to the chat. Usually we
Yeah.
want to do this when voting is going on, so that when you share idea, it becomes fresh to the voters' mind, and then they will be able to make informed decision on it. So that is it. But thanks for reminding us. So our next meeting is 7th June. However, we can still give people the platform to share their ideas on the 7th June. But because we want it to be fresh on people's mind, we wanted to be in the line of the voting time. So thank you very much once again for coming to today's meeting. We appreciate all of you and your contribution. And officially, the Catalyst African Town Hall have closed, but you can stay back for extra conversation. We usually end with playing musics and playing African music. So thank you very much. Au revoir. Good night.